So you guys started the early activity on Apple buying Disney. Okay, that was the name of the do now to get your gears moving. Now, this is probably one of my favorite assignments, discussions, lessons, and it'll be probably week long. This is probably, if you're a business person or you have conspiracy theories, or if you're like a product person and you've always looked at products that you buy or like and wondered why or how could they get new features in some of these products, this is probably going to be exciting. I wouldn't say exciting for you because I doubt you guys are as dorky as I am, but somewhat exhilarating in terms of how you think. So what I want to do is open up the original Do Now, which is quite lengthy. Again, it's due today. It should have been started. You should have done it last night if you're only doing it right now. I check the Do Nows after class. So if they are done late, like after a couple hours after class, once I start grading them, I'm grading them, right? So these are due not at midnight, but these are due when you walk in, okay? So first, name a company Apple should purchase, Alphabet, Amazon, Microsoft. Then we talk about the spinoff of PayPal, Apple buying Beats, Google buying YouTube, Amazon buying Ring. Why the hell doesn't anybody want Twitter? And will Apple ever buy Disney? So before you can effectively, thoroughly do this, you have to understand the difference between three key terms. So one would be the merger, the acquisition, and the spinoff. If you have not heard of one of these terms or two of these terms, can you just type it in the chat window? If you have not heard of any of these terms, just type which one's in the chat window. All right, most of you will not have heard the term spinoff, but let's just see. Acquisition, anyone? We've talked about mergers, actually. Acquisitions, I think we briefly touched on. Spinoffs is probably the most confusing for people. And it's in reality, it's actually the least confusing of how this would work. Acquisitions, okay, Zebin, thank you. So I'm going to demo first your merger. These are two companies. Can you guys see my screen?
Yes.
Great. So these are two businesses. Now, is one of these businesses big enough to absorb the other one? Right?
Yes.
So I'm going to ask, who was that, Prasanga? So I'm going to ask Prasanga while he's speaking. So Prasanga, here's my question to you. If you and I are a business, right? You're a business, I'm a business. You're worth $10 million. I'm worth $10 million. Would you sell your business to me?
Depends on how much you're offering, but I don't think it would be likely.
Okay. Why wouldn't it be likely?
Because we're close competitors, I'm assuming, and you probably don't have the capability to buy me.
Yeah.
And like I could still function.
Yeah, so that's 100% true, right? You're pretty much the same size, probably similar expenses and revenue. Probably would be difficult to buy a company of my own size. But you realize it's impossible to compete against Daniel, who is this big of a business, right? And this is Daniel's business. We can't compete against that, right? Daniel's a monster. He's a behemoth, right? He's the 800-pound gorilla in the room, and we're two little baby monkeys. What we can do, though, is join forces. Does that make sense? We can now become one business. That is a merger. when we realize there are some top competitors like Daniel, Prasanga, and I, here's Prasanga, here's Mr. Power, we realize, you know what? Let's pool our businesses together. And now combined, we actually make a business that is this big. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
Questions on that? That's a merger. This would be Prasanga has Prasanga Incorporated. I have Mr. Power Industries. We combined our businesses to form one business called P&P Industries, Prasanga and Power Industries, PPI, or PP Inc., whatever you want to call it. So we are no longer Prasanga. He's out. We are no longer Mr. Power. He's out. We are only PP Industries. We are a brand new business that merged. Does that make sense? Good. Now, we do this for a few reasons. Why might be one reason we can do this? One reason we can do this.
To combine resources to effectively compete with the other business?
Yeah, so number one, we are combining resources because we, right? We actually think that we can combine everything we're doing, which is true. What are we combining? What are we combining?
Workforce.
Yeah, so we're combining our workforce, which means what can we actually do with our business?
Make it more effective by like just having the best employees.
Okay, so if we're having the best employees, what happens to some of our employees?
They get laid off.
That's right. You can fire people. Now, I'm not touting firing people. Boo-hoo. But guess what? If we are merging our businesses, we have a lot of things overlapping. What else might overlap? What kind of employees? So you're telling me employees, but what kind? New apps merges with Lux. What departments overlap?
Marketing?
Marketing. You probably don't need two marketing teams, right? You already have one. They can do the marketing for two businesses, right? That are now one new business. What else?
HR.
HR. Maybe you hire one more person. So instead of having 2 or 3 HRs, maybe you have 4, but you don't need 6, right? You don't need 2 departments. So what are you doing effectively? You're cutting the workforce. Therefore, what are you cutting?
Expenses.
Hell yeah. That's the goal. You're cutting expenses. But while you're cutting the bad part, you're cutting the fat, right? We're cutting expenses. That's saving us money. What else is happening while we're doing that? So we are joining expenses. What else are we joining?
Capital. How much money each business has.
Yup. And your revenue.
Mm-hmm.
So you are not only joining your expenses where you can now cut expenses, but you're joining. So imagine this. Prasanga makes $100,000 a year with $20,000 in payroll. I make $110,000 a year with $20,000 in payroll. Combined, we make $210,000 a year with maybe $28,000 in payroll. We just doubled revenue and cut our expenses by almost 50%, by over 50%. This is why you merge. Make sense?
Yes.
Okay. 2 companies that you think should merge. Think of 2. Now, I'll go first. I bought stock in a merger, Sirius Satellite and XM Radio. They merged back in the early mid 2000s as two separate businesses of similar size, merged together to form one bigger business, to fight radio, right? To fight old school radio. That was their job. That was their goal. Who else might you think could be a good merger? Anyone? Okay, we'll move on. So you guys are going to have to likely do that for your project, which we will get to. But first, I want to then go over what would be an acquisition. So you know the merger. Two companies forming one brand new company. Then you have an acquisition. Now, these two companies, are they the same size? Don't all answer at once. No, they're not. They're not, right? These are two different sized businesses. So Google bought YouTube back in like 2006 or 2009, whatever it was. Okay? Apple bought Beats. Amazon bought Ring. Amazon also bought Whole Foods. Google just bought a company last week. Okay? My question to you is, what happens when you acquire a business? So you have a big business, you have a small business. The big business acquires them. What happens? Now you're going to have to unmute and talk with me, guys.
For the big business, I think they're able to like grow in a particular section or like sector of their business.
Like what?
So when Apple bought Beats, they were able to like improve their music streaming platform.
Good. They were also able to use some of their technology to create better headphones.
Right.
Good. Talk to me about the structure of employees. How does this work? So when you have, we know what happens during a merger. What happens during an acquisition? Emery, you're HR. What do you think your job is going to be during an acquisition?
Maybe you figure out like what employees can fit in which sector or department now that like for example, like when Apple bought Beats, maybe the Beats employees, like the Apple HR had to figure out where the Beats employees, like if they fit in the same department they were working at in Beats, or should they be placed into a new one at Apple?
And what if they're not placed? What can you do?
What?
What if you don't place them into a new department? What can you do?
You can either fire them or put them into somewhere new.
There you go. You can get rid of them. So when you acquire a business, it's the same concept of a merger where you're joining theoretically revenue. So all of Beats' revenue is now Apple revenue, and all of the Beats employees could become Apple employees. Or you can just take their best employees or their managers and fire everyone else. So it's the same concept of a merger in terms of revenue and expenses, but you don't form a new business. So Apple bought Beats and Beats became part of Apple. Adidas bought Reebok. So although the Reebok brand still exists, who files the taxes every year? Who gets all the revenue and all the expenses? Not rhetorical. Daniel?
Adidas.
Adidas, exactly. Reebok theoretically doesn't exist anymore. They don't exist anymore. Their brand exists, but they don't have money. They don't have expenses. All of that is really Adidas revenue and Adidas expenses. Similar to like Nike and the Jordan brand. Jordan is not its own business. Nike is the business, and the Jordan brand falls under it. All right? So that's the concept behind a merger and acquisition. Are there any questions on mergers or acquisitions? Any question? Okay, no questions. Good. All right. So now we move on to what you probably don't know much about, which would be the spinoff. So the big circle is eBay. Okay? The big circle is eBay. The little circle is PayPal. Which business is bigger? Come on, guys, not hard. I'll even change the color for you. I'll even go in and change the color. So the big green circle is eBay. And this little orange is PayPal. Which one is a bigger business?
eBay.
Yeah, eBay. I don't know why this is taking so long for you guys. eBay is larger. But if you watch, PayPal is slowly growing bigger and bigger and bigger until eBay realizes PayPal can do so much better as its own business. As its own business. That's what a spinoff is. eBay still owns shares or a percentage of PayPal, yes, right? But PayPal's now their own business. They are no longer part of eBay. They no longer have to answer to the eBay CEO. They no longer have to do what eBay says to do. They no longer have to follow the policies or practices of eBay. PayPal can now act as an independent business. That's a spinoff. When you have a business inside of a business that can do better by itself, you spin it off and let it grow by itself until it's as big as it can be. Now check this out. While you're absorbing that, let's go eBay revenue and PayPal revenue. So again, PayPal was part of eBay, right? Then eBay spun off PayPal. Now look at this. eBay revenue in 2018 was $10.7 billion. PayPal revenue in 2018 was $15.4 billion. eBay spun off PayPal, then PayPal got bigger than eBay. Put a smiley face if you understand in the chat. Okay. So there are perks to a spinoff. Right? There's things that you can do when you're not handcuffed by a boss like eBay. But then you take a company like YouTube. Once Google bought YouTube, YouTube exploded huge because all these Gmail and Google users now had access to this YouTube platform that they didn't even know about. So sometimes acquiring a business helps it grow, and sometimes spinning off a business helps it grow. Does that make sense?
Yes.
Wonderful. Now, that leads us to other questions. Should Apple, Alphabet, Amazon, or Microsoft purchase anyone? That was your do now, right? Why doesn't anyone want Twitter? Right? Twitter and Snap are the two social media companies that haven't been bought yet. Right? Facebook is huge. They're not buyable. But a company like Twitter could fit inside Amazon. Google killed their Hangouts platform because nobody liked that social media structure. Apple doesn't have social media. PayPal has Venmo, which is kind of a social payment platform, but nobody wants Twitter. That's a decision that you make at the corporate level. And you sit down and say, does the revenue make sense? Does the expenses make sense? Can we add growth to Twitter and help make more money? Will buying Twitter make more money for Google? If the answer is no, and you project it to be no, then you don't do it. Oh, sorry, my meeting just lagged. All I was saying, Ham, was that if it doesn't make sense, you don't buy the company. Like Apple buying Twitter. Does it make sense? I don't know. They'd have to look at, will buying Twitter for $40 billion help make Apple $80 billion in 5 years? Will it be worth it? I don't know. Okay, that's a management meeting. So this was your do now, just to get the conversation started. Now, my question is, why did Amazon buy Ring? So if you did the do now last night or this morning, you might have done some research. Maybe you have a thought. Somebody want to share, what is Ring before we say why Amazon bought them? Does anybody here have Ring? Unmute, don't type, unmute. I'd like to hear you.
Yeah, I have Ring.
Okay, so Ethan, can you explain to everyone in like 15 seconds what is Ring?
So it's like a smart home technology. So we have the doorbell. You just use it every time someone rings it. You could actually look who's ringing it. Like it has a built-in camera attached to it, and you can go through it to your phone, and your house can also have the same object.
Good. So you can access it from your phone.
Yep.
Good. Why do you think Amazon bought Ring for $1 billion? They bought them for $1 billion.
Maybe to get more exposure to something like smart home tech.
Good. So maybe they wanted to use their smart home tech. Why else? Anyone else?
Can they like upsell a service? Because like, I guess Amazon and Ring are kind of related in the way that whenever you get a package, you kind of want to check if it's like safe. So if they have that service, they could be like, oh, since you're buying products from us already, why don't you also add in this like security service?
Yeah, treat Ring as a security service. I think it's a great idea. And now you can charge more. Now, what would Ring, what is Amazon's core business? What do they do? What is Amazon's core business? Core business. What do you think they do? If you had to tell me in like one sentence, what does Amazon do? Anybody?
I would say that Amazon is more of a online shipping and delivering service, I believe.
Perfect. So if you do an e-commerce shipping and delivery service, Why did they buy Ring?
I think it's related to the Whole Foods acquisition. Amazon wants to make sure that they can like strengthen people's confidence in like buying groceries from Amazon by having a home camera where they can see that their groceries get delivered safely.
There you go. That's exactly it. So Ham is writing that Amazon has an issue with people stealing packages, which they do. With Ring, maybe there's more trust in Amazon because now you think that you can watch your packages show up. It improves their customer service, like William kind of said. It gives you that sense of, oh, I'm more comfortable buying from Amazon. Ring supports their business model. Very simple. All right. Ring supports their business model. And like Frida said, maybe they can charge more for it. Maybe you can charge more because now you're giving them an additional service. Not a bad idea. So maybe that $1 billion in Ring over the next 5 years makes them $2 billion. So in 5 years, they make $1 billion profit. Then everything else is all profit. Could be genius. Could be genius. Okay. So here's a question. Why hasn't Apple bought Disney? Why hasn't Apple bought Tesla? Apple's got like $200 billion in cash. Cash. Like just in a mattress, into the wall. They have all this cash. Why haven't they bought Tesla or Disney or Netflix? Anybody want to offer a thesis?
I don't know. Would you say since Apple and Disney are kind of like at the same level, like their performance in terms of like like they're growing, like they can do well by themselves as a company, like both Apple and Disney by themselves?
Yeah, so they can do well separately. They can do well separately. And maybe owning Disney doesn't really help Apple.
Yeah.
All right. Daniel, talk about what you just typed.
Tesla, Disney, and I forgot the other company you said, but they're all in debt. So if they buy the company, they also inherit the debt, which is kind of pointless.
Yeah. So when you buy a company, you don't just get the good, you get the bad. So you get their cash, you get their employees if you want them, you get their technology, you get everything they own. You also get their debt, and you owe their debt. So it's not just always a good idea. You have to kind of do an opportunity cost analysis, right? Is it better to keep the cash as Apple or use the cash to buy a company that has debt that's going to take years to help make you profit?
I kind of also have a thesis. Maybe they're
Okay.
just waiting on them.
Define
Basically,
waiting on them. What does that mean?
like wait till they grow more, where they can, like as Daniel kind of said, to clear out their debt a bit, and then they can buy them off.
Well,
If that makes sense.
if you wanted to buy a company, wouldn't you buy them before they start to get healthy? Wouldn't you buy them while maybe you can buy them for cheaper?
I mean, it's an idea. Maybe they just want to wait. And just,
It's possible. They could just want to wait and see what happens. But again, these are thoughts that you guys have to develop. Before I go over what your assignment's going to be, your bigger assignment, are there any questions on mergers, acquisitions, or spinoffs? Tomorrow, we're going to talk about how they do it, right? How can this be done? Are there any questions on what they are, though? Okay, I assume that's a no. So activity 1, which is pretty straight ahead, you're talking about the ways that companies can grow. Debt, equity, cash. What's a merger? What's a spinoff? What's an acquisition? Okay, so it's really defining like 5 or 6 terms. Then I give you some interesting information on mergers and acquisitions. Facebook bought Instagram in 2014 for $19 billion. They bought WhatsApp in 2015 for $22 billion. Google tried to sell itself to Yahoo for $1 million in 1998. Yahoo turned it down. Imagine. Exxon buys Mobile, forms a new business. Microsoft bought LinkedIn for $28 billion in 2016. Verizon bought AOL. Then Verizon bought Yahoo. Google bought YouTube for $2 billion. Apple buys Beats for $3 billion. PayPal is split off from eBay. That's a lot going on. A lot going on. Questions on those? Some crazy acquisitions when you think about it. You guys are sleeping today. Nobody got coffee? I'm going to have to Uber you guys coffee for tomorrow. So activity 2, which I have some wrong information on. So let me actually update this. April 23, and this is activity 2. Okay. And you know what? What is today? The 20th? Yeah, 23 is fine. So activity 1 was those terms. Activity 2 is deciding which companies you want to do your assignment on. Okay. So do you want to find companies that should merge, that somebody should be acquired? And I will also add, you can do a spinoff. So if you know that YouTube, and you think YouTube will do better without Google, and they'll grow faster without Google, then maybe that's your project. Make the argument for YouTube spinning off. Maybe you want to do a merger. Maybe there's 2 businesses you know of that should merge and form a new business. So number 1 is going to pick at least 2 companies that could merge, 1 be acquired, or you can do a spinoff. I'll allow that. And then you have to message me to approve your company. So just typing it here is not enough. You have to text me. You guys have my number. You did it with the last assignment. I need you to message me to confirm the merger or acquisitions. First come, first serve. I will not allow anyone to duplicate. So first come, first serve. So if it's 2 airlines merging, whoever gets to me first. JetBlue and United Airlines are going to merge. Great. That can be yours. No one else can do those 2 companies. Okay. Apple's going to buy Spotify. Well, good. Nobody else can do Apple buying Spotify. Questions? No questions. Okay. Then you'll get to activity 3. Activity 3 is the actual assignment. Okay. We'll go over this more tomorrow. All right. I know that you guys have to get out of here in a few minutes. We ran through the kind of mergers, acquisition, spin-off thing pretty quick. You guys seem to grasp that relatively fast. We will go over the bigger assignment tomorrow. Tomorrow, I also want to go over some of the top companies that we think are acquisition targets for 2020. We're also going to look at a list of purchases that Apple has made, which if you notice, this is a lot of them, all the way, still going. They even bought, even up to a few weeks ago, they just bought a few businesses. Okay. Same thing with Alphabet. We'll look at everything that Alphabet has been purchasing. Okay. Then we'll look at same thing with Amazon. Who is Amazon purchasing? Okay. So any questions on what we discussed so far? The second due now for tomorrow is posted on funding and acquisition. That's what we're going to start thinking about tomorrow. If you will need to cite sources for the final project, yes, you can APA format it for the actual assignment that's going to be due in like 10 days. Okay, you will have to you will actually have to have 1 page, 1 slide of formatting. Okay, so citations to validate your research. APA formatting, it's very simple. There are a bunch of generators that can do formatting for you. So if you just type in citation machine, that's a popular one that I've used. Citation machine could help you do that. Any questions that you guys have about what we discussed? I'll let you go a minute or so early. Are there any questions on mergers or acquisitions? Is there one that you found that you would love to share from the do now? Anybody, is there something burning? You have this idea that you wish they would listen to you. Tasneem, Sheik, Shannon. Is there anything Google or Amazon should buy to be more competitive? To earn more, to cut costs, to make their phones better? Nothing. Talking to a wall. Mr. Ham, can you? Oh, there we go, Shannon. Microsoft buying Spotify sparked you. Is that what you want to do your project on? Okay. Shannon, you're approved. No one else can use Microsoft or Spotify. Done. Mike, no one can use Microsoft buying Spotify. Now, we'll discuss that tomorrow, Shannon. We'll use that as maybe our foundation, since you're the first to kind of say something piqued your interest. We will use that to kind of discuss how would they finance that? With debt, with cash? Would they give every Spotify shareholder shares in Microsoft, and then they don't owe them any money, and they just give them shares of the company? So there's a few ways we can do it: debt, equity, or cash. Ham, you're gonna have to unmute yourself. What is Nuance? What is that?
They're computer software technology corporation, and like they're they're really big in AI right now.
Define big. What does that mean? What are they doing?
Like they're making. I still have to do more research, but I think that if Alphabet like would purchase Nuance, like buying this company would help them look more into like specializations in AI, and it's kind of perfect for Google because like they're already like so in technology, and like combined with the technology combined, like there will be major breakthroughs that can happen in the AI industry. So it would like strengthen the Alphabet's like involvement in technology even more.
Okay. It's a very on the top argument. You would have to dive deeper into the nuanced technology. And how would Google use it? Would you consider implementing it into their phones? Would it be an added paid service that they can offer companies to add to their websites? Would it be something that they add to Google Classroom, which schools pay for to improve education, right? So where would it be used, and how much would Nuance cost? And what does Google have now? Like, what is Google doing with AR right now? And what would Nuance provide that Google can't do? Here's one thing you should think about. And Ham, this would be something good to think about. And same thing for you, Shannon. Is it cheaper for Microsoft to build? Is it cheaper for Microsoft to build their own audio streaming service like Spotify? Or is it cheaper to just say, you know what, screw it, let's just buy Spotify. It's faster, it's easier, it's cheaper. That's really the argument. Is it easier for Apple to make headphones that compete with Beats? Or is it easier just to say, you know what, let's just buy Beats because we can't compete with them. Let's just buy them. So that's really the argument that you guys have to consider, because that's the only reason you would acquire a company, is if you can't do it yourself, or it's way too darn expensive to do it yourself. Does that make sense?
Mhm.
Okay, so we've only got about no minutes left. We're over by about 2 or 3 minutes. I'm going to let you guys go. I do apologize for running over time. Tomorrow we'll be back in here early for class. What time is class tomorrow? Tomorrow we meet 10:40. So I'll see you guys at 10:40. Get the do now done tonight if you can. That will springboard our discussion. And if you bring your ideas tomorrow, I can approve them right here during class if you give this some thought tonight. All right, but don't give me some superficial argument though. Give me something with like meat to it. Like Walmart should buy a trucking company, because Walmart, the only way to compete with Amazon is if they buy a trucking company so they can ship faster. Walmart should buy, its own grocery store, because Walmart already does groceries, right? In the large 24-hour super Walmarts. Should TJ Maxx, purchase that? Should Netflix buy a movie theater like AMC? Like, don't just say, yeah, I think it's a cool idea. Do some research, why, and give it some deep thought. Why should they do that? And then we can discuss that a bit tomorrow. And if you have no questions, I'll just end the recording and I'll post it in a few minutes. You guys are cool?
Yep, good.
Good. All right. Mergers, acquisitions, and spinoffs. To me, it's the most exciting thing because it happens all the time. And thinking about who should buy who and who wants to buy what is always kind of cool to have those debates and arguments. So I look forward to having those with you guys. So you guys have a good day. I'll see you tomorrow.
Thank you. Have a good day.